Welcome back. All right, so over the next couple of days, before we head out on Tuesday morning, I wanted to make videos on the All-Star break and where teams are at and whether or not they've lived up to their status. And we'll start off with the Arizona Coyotes because they've lived up to their status. The Coyotes don't play again until the 6th, I believe, of January, and their record is 16, 28, and 6. So they're winning more games than might have been expected. Their power ranking high this year, and this is again my power rankings, 25th. Their lowest, their current spot, 32nd. Their playoff odds are currently at 0%. This is all according to plan. The Coyotes were not expected to be in the hunt. They're not in the hunt, and here we are. So the 10 games, if we look at each 10-game segment, they were 3-6-1 after 10 games into this year. 7-10-3, 20 games in. So they're staying competitive. And a lot of these games are on the road, too. So it leaves this idea of what happens when they come home. 30 games in, they're 10-15-5. 40 games in, 13-22-5. And their current record, 16-28-6. So they win 3 games the first 10, 4 games in the next 10, 3 the next, 3 the next, 3 the next. So while they've had long losing streaks in there, too, they've been winning enough games with each 10-game segment. They should finish with about 24, 25 wins. Overall, depending on what happens, of course, at the deadline and if they fall way off. But at the very least, they shouldn't finish with less than 20 wins on the season. And really, honestly, this can be considered a success. Their status is as a rebuilder. I don't have any reason to think that that's going to change anytime soon. This is a team that's going to be trying to build itself up in a way that, is different in that they've torn most of it down. Not all of it, but most. If I was going to pick an MVP right now, I would pick Karl Vejmelka. I think he's kept them in games. I think he's won them some games. I don't know that I would have picked Vejmelka if I'd done this video, say, 20 games ago. But right now, yes, I would say Vejmelka. I might have gone with Keller or Krause 20 games ago. So if we look at their top scorers, Keller does end up at the top of the board. 18 goals, 23 assists, 41 points. Phenomenal talent. And when Arizona gets better, his numbers will get better as well. In that I think he's capable of 90, 95 points in a season. Gostisbehere, 9 goals, 20 assists, 29 points. Likely to get moved at the deadline. Good, solid defenseman. Really does have the offensive side of the game down. And so I think it could be entertaining to see where he goes and how he performs after a trade. Krause, 16 goals, 12 assists, 28 points. One of the best kept secrets in the NHL's Lawson Krause. I would think that while they would hang up if you called to inquire about Keller, they might if you inquired about Krause as well. A really solid power forward, capable of 25 goals in a season. He may end up there this year. I've been very impressed with his play. Schmaltz, 11 goals, 17 assists, 28 points. People know I'm a Schmaltz fan. I have been since he was in Chicago. I was very surprised the Blackhawks moved him. I'm still surprised the Blackhawks moved him, but the Blackhawks have moved a lot of players I'm surprised they have. So he's just one of them. For Schmaltz, it's been a good season when he's played. He did have an injury issue at one point this year, but he's played well. And then you have Chychrun, the oft-mentioned, oft-talked about Jacob Chychrun. 5 goals, 20 assists, 25 points. He hasn't played every game, so those stats, he could be a 50-point producer. He could be a 15-goal guy, and honestly, with his contract still having a few years left on it, if he goes to the right team, I think the sky could potentially be the limit. Now, their pending UFA list, you have Nick Ritchie, probably going to get moved at the deadline. Bjugstad, he is very likely to get moved at the deadline, if not before. There's lots of rumors out there of where he's going to go right now. Gostisbehere, much the same thing. Stecher absolutely could end up being moved at the deadline. I like Troy Stecher as a depth defenseman. I think he'd be a solid pickup. Carconi's an interesting one in that he's played really well in the AHL. He's looked good for the Coyotes when he's played with them. And I think he might have a little bit of value at the deadline. They might be able to get a middling, maybe a 5th-round pick for him from a team looking to add some depth and some insurance up front. He does have to clear waivers, of course, being more of a veteran player. But it's an interesting thing looking at Carconi and seeing how he's had a pretty good year, and maybe they can parlay that into moving him for an asset or two. And then you have Gillies. John Gillies, their number 3 goaltender. The interesting thing with this is if Gillies could potentially be seen as maybe the backup for them at some point, the tandem of Vejmelka and Ingram, would they look at maybe moving Connor Ingram? Would Ingram potentially be on the market? And then would you be looking at Gillies as being their backup? Or does Gillies end up being a guy that gets moved at the deadline. Again, for insurance in net. Teams are going to be looking for insurance up front, blue line, and in goal. And so guys are going to get moved that we don't necessarily expect. Of course, their tandem being Vejmelka and Ingram is keeping them in games. They don't get the goal support that most goalies would like, but they've played well. I think for Arizona, I think they're on the right path. I don't have any reason to think that Arizona is going to jeopardize their draft position between now and the end of the year, because again, they're going to sell off a lot of their players, and already they're in a pretty good spot for the draft as is. So wouldn't be surprised to see them having a bit more difficulty winning games after the deadline. But because Andre Tourigny's behind the bench, because they're a very hardworking team, they're going to still win games that we don't expect. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on the season of the Arizona Coyotes thus far. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.